Hello students, welcome to JK Shah online fast track course for Inter CA subject financial management. Hi, my name is Professor Bhavin Gandhi and I am a chartered accountant and company secretary by qualifications. And before we start with this video, let me just give you a brief introduction about myself. I have been teaching in JK Shah classes for Inter CA financial management and final CA strategic financial management all over India, and I have taught more than 20,000 plus students in cities like Mumbai, Surat, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Indore, etc. So today I am here exclusively in front of you to start with Inter CA financial management fast track course. As you all know, my dear students, that fast track course I will be completing all the concepts of financial management in less than 30 hours, covering more than 80 practical questions. So yes, my dear students, more than 80 plus practical questions will be covered in less than 30 hours. Exclusively for you, this course is designed to cover all the concepts of financial management. So whether you are a fresher or repeater, it doesn't mind looking after this particular video. After completion of this particular course, I am very sure that all the concepts of financial management will be covered. So rest assured, this is a one-stop solution, my dear students, for completing the financial management in a very quick but conceptual way. Because what I have tried and do here is, I have divided this entire financial management course into 10 chapters, and I have created every chapter into 3 main sections, where the first section is theory part, second section will be your practical questions, and then the last section will be your conclusion. So my dear students, there will be theory, practical questions and conclusions, and one small request that whenever you start watching the videos, please watch it in a particular sequence, because the theory part will give you a brief idea about what are we going to learn in this particular chapter. It's going to give a brief idea about what is the objective of this particular chapter, what are the types of questions which can be asked, and all the concepts which we are going to cover. Then I have taken practical questions from various sources, majority from study module, also from your institute past examination questions, and covering all the concepts, so that just by referring to the practical questions and solving these many questions will be sufficient for you, in fact more than sufficient, to appear at examination and pass with flying colors. Also at the same time, after the end of all the practical questions, I have created a summary video which I call it as a conclusion video. In this, I will summarize which all concepts you all have learned in this particular chapter, what are the types of questions, how much time you should take to solve a particular question in the examination, what should be your approach, what are the steps, etc. etc. So all this exclusively for you, my dear students, and just by completing this much, your financial management should be done conceptually absolutely clear. So one more small instruction which I wanted to give you all is, while watching a particular video, there are two options for a student to solve the questions. Either you can solve the questions along with me also, because mind you, all the 80 questions I will be solving it here on your video. None of the questions I am going to skip it. So we will be doing that together, and when you will be solving that particular question, one option is that when I am solving it, you can solve this simultaneously in your notebooks, or else you can just watch the process in which I am solving it, practice it in rough work, and after the end of the video, I will present each and every solution once again. If you want, then you can copy that solution just how institute expects it. So my dear students, if you want, then you can solve this practical questions along with me simultaneously, or you can also solve the particular questions after the end of every video. The choice is yours depending upon your comfort. But just make sure that you pay attention to everything what I say, because each and every question has a different concept. So it's covering more than 80 plus concepts in less than 30 hours. in a very effective and conceptual manner. Also at the same time, my dear students, I am going to offer a test series in this online course itself. So what's going to happen is, I'll be providing you with the test papers, and then you can check it for yourself that whether you are able to solve the questions properly or not in the way what institute expects, and then we can go through and check whether the answers are correct or not. So my dear students, this is a one-stop solution for your entire financial management for 60 marks, and trust me, if you are able to solve each and every question of this course, you are more than ready for your examinations. So just to conclude, my dear students, you have made a right choice. Let us now proceed with the chapters of financial management. I have given you instructions about how to watch the video. Also, how to approach a particular question. You have to always follow the video sequence which is given to you. Just don't break it, because each and every video, one after another, will have some concepts attached. Sometimes I will also tell you to solve the question. If suppose a particular question will have two parts, one part I will solve it, one part I want you all to solve it. So we can make it interactive that way, where you will be solving the particular question on your own, and when you will be solving the particular question on your own, a particular part of the question, at the same time I will also be presenting the solution, and then you can just reconfirm that whatever is being done by you, that is correct or not. So if suppose a particular question has three parts, maybe I'll solve two parts, and one part I will tell you, I will give you time in the video itself to solve it on your own, and after a couple of minutes the solution will be presented to you, where I'll explain to you how the solution has come, and then you can reconfirm the answers. So just make use of your time very effectively and very efficiently. Correct? So that's all what I wanted to tell you. Wish you all the good luck. I'm very sure you are going to enjoy this particular course, and make sure that you solve every question along with me, or else after completion of a particular video, but practice is the key to success. The new chapter, accounting ratios, okay, very important chapter from the examination perspective. Almost in every attempt this chapter is asked for approximately 6 marks to 8 marks. So that's why I just want you all to now listen to me very carefully regarding the theory part, and then we will continue further. So just pay attention and listen to me very thoroughly. Okay, my dear students. Now first of all, let us understand that why do we have ratios. Ratios, my dear students, is a relationship between two or more variables to arrive at a meaningful result. Without ratios, you will not be able to analyze the performance of a particular company. Now let's say for example there are two companies, company A, company B. I tell you that both the companies are having, first company is having a profit of 100 crores, second company is having a profit of, let's say, 50 crores. So definitely you will tell me, sir, the first company is much better. Why? Because its net profits are higher. There is 100 crores profits. So we should invest in that particular first company. But my dear students, this absolute analysis can never give you any meaningful result. If there is 100 and if there is 50, you just can't judge that the profits of 100 is better than 50, so we should go with that 100 crore profits. That's absolutely wrong. Why? Because it is possible that 100 crore profits are generated because of sales of 1000 crore rupees. And your 50 crore profits are able to generate because of sales of 100 crore rupees. So can I say in the second case, the profit margin is 50%. In the first case, the profit margin is 10%. Guys, don't you think we should go with the second company because its net profit margin is higher? So my dear students, higher the net profit margin, don't you think that that particular company is doing much better, yes or no? Then the answer is yes. So my dear students, concept here is very simple, that whenever we have two companies and both the companies have different net profit ratios, we need to check that which company has a higher net profit ratio and that particular company is better than the other. So I hope you're trying to understand that what role the ratio plays here. There are two variables which we are comparing. We are comparing net profit with sales, and that's how we are getting net profit ratio. And higher the net profit ratio, the better it is. If I just take net profits, then I cannot arrive at a meaningful result. I would end up investing in the first company with a net profit of 100 crores. Don't you think rather than that, the second company is much better where the profit margins are higher? Hence, my dear students, we have to calculate ratio, which is net profit upon sales into 100. So, my dear students, ratio is nothing but the relationship of two or more variables so that we can arrive at a meaningful result. And who will calculate the ratios? Can I say company's internal management can calculate the ratios to check how the company is performing? Even shareholders who wants to invest in companies, they prima facie always check the ratios of the company. So that is why we call this as fundamental analysis. That when we analyze the financial statements, when we analyze the profit and loss account, balance sheet, etc., we calculate the ratios, and then on the basis of the ratios we judge whether the particular company is doing good or bad, how it was performing in the last year, what is the performance today, and so on. So my dear students, concept here is very clear that when we are talking about ratios, it gives us a key indicator about the performance of a particular company, and it explains us the relationship of two or more variables. Okay. So now my dear students, absolute figures, as I told you, will not give you any results. So that's why there is a need to calculate a ratio. Now there are three main types of ratios. The first one is balance sheet ratio, the second one is your P&L ratio, and the third one is your mixed ratio. Balance sheet ratio, as the name only suggests, numerator and denominator both will come from balance sheet. And these are also known as solvency ratios. Then the second one is your P&L ratio, where the numerator denominator will both come from P&L. And the third one is a mixed ratio, where the numerator will come from the P&L and the denominator will come from the balance sheet. So my dear students, there are three main sets of ratios: balance sheet, P&L and mixed ratios. And then there are some other important ratios also which we will discuss, which is not getting classified in any of these three ratios. Very interesting chapter, and a base if you want to analyze any particular company, if you want to invest in stock market, etc., then this accounting ratios chapter will play a very important role. Okay. So let's get started, my dear students, with balance sheet ratios first. Let us understand the theory of this particular topic, and in this video we will be first studying what is a balance sheet ratio, what is the meaning of a balance sheet ratio, what are the types of balance sheet ratios, how to understand the concept of these ratios, etc., etc. Okay. So let's start with reading of the theory part. Okay. Now what is this meaning and objective? Ratio is a relationship between two variables to arrive at a meaningful result. Absolute figures do not communicate any meaningful result. Can I say single figures cannot communicate any meaningful result? As I told you, if I just give you net profits of two companies, you cannot judge that the company with a higher net profit is better, because there is a great possibility that the sales can also be tremendously high, because of which net profit ratio might be lower. So that's why we have to calculate net profit ratio for the purpose of understanding whether the particular company is doing good or bad, right? So absolute figures do not communicate any meaningful result, and hence there is a need for ratios. Ratios also help in comparing the performance of the company with that of its competitors, as well as with the company's own performance of last year. So internal as well as external people will definitely take help of ratios to check whether a particular company is doing good or bad. Okay. In this chapter we will learn following three things: how to calculate ratios from the given balance sheets, prepare financial statements from the given ratios, and calculate ratios and interpret the results. So there are three things which are required to be calculated. Number one is calculation of ratios. Number two is preparation of financial statements from the ratios. So ratios will be given to you and you have to prepare financial statements. Financial statements will be given to you, you have to calculate ratios, and then we have to calculate the ratios and interpret the results. So we are covering all these types of the questions in this particular chapter. Okay. There are three types of ratios as we discussed. The first one is your balance sheet ratio, numerator, denominator, both comes from balance sheet. Second one is your P&L ratio, both will come from your P&L, and mixed ratio, numerator comes from P&L, denominator comes from balance sheet. Let us get started now with balance sheet ratios. Guys, balance sheet ratios are also known as your solvency ratios. Why they are called as solvency ratio? Because as you all know, in balance sheets we'll be having assets and liabilities, right? So assets and liabilities indicate the solvency position of a company as on a particular date. It is nothing but a solvency position of a particular company as on a particular date. That is called as a balance sheet ratio. Now what are we going to do here is, if you compare assets and liabilities, you will definitely come to know how solvent someone is. Let's say for example, I compare my current assets with current liabilities. What do I come to know? Okay, how much solvent this particular company is. I have assets worth rupees 500 crores. I have liabilities worth 100 crores. So can I say my ratio is 5:1? I have more assets as compared to liabilities. So when you are taking balance sheet ratios, when you are taking the items from the balance sheet asset side and liabilities, you always check the solvency position of a particular company. Okay. So balance sheet ratios are also known as solvency ratios, as they test the solvency, that is ability to pay position of the company. And these ratios are calculated in pure numbers, which is 2:1, 1.5:1, 3:1, etc. These are nothing but your solvency ratios, and the lenders and the creditors of the company generally use these ratios. Lenders and creditors. Now, who are these lenders and creditors? Can I say these lenders and creditors are always worried about the solvency position of the company, because either they have given money or either they have sold goods. So that is why they are more worried about how much solvent the company is going to be. So suppose if I have given a loan to some particular company, then of course I will be the most worried person about its solvency position, because if it's going to be insolvent, then I'll not get my money back, right? So that is why lenders and creditors always use this particular ratios. But also at the same time, even we analysts, when we want to invest in a particular company, we check the solvency position of the particular company first. So that is why, you know, balance sheet ratios compares your assets, liabilities, etc. Hence, we have to understand balance sheet ratios also as solvency ratios, right? Now, what are the ratios? So there are in all some 7 ratios, my dear students. You have current ratio, you have quick ratio, super quick ratio, stock to working capital, debt equity, capital gearing, and proprietary ratio. So there are in all some 7 ratios in your balance sheet ratios, right? Okay, let us do it one by one. The first one is your current ratio. Now, as the name only suggests, current ratio, my dear students, we will take current assets upon current liabilities. So what are we going to do in current ratio? We will be taking current assets upon current liabilities. Here, we will be taking assets and liabilities which are short term in nature. Because what are current? Because current items are those items which can be converted or redeemed into cash within a period of 1 year. So those are called as your current assets and current liabilities. Example, debtors, example, stock, example, prepaid expenses, cash, bank. All these are nothing but what? All these are nothing but your current items, current assets. And we need to compare these current assets with your current liabilities and check whether the particular company is short-term solvent or insolvent. So in this particular ratio, we indicate the ability of the company to pay its current liabilities with the help of current assets. So we will take all our stock, debtors, bill receivable, cash, bank, etc. everything which can be repaid into cash within a period of 1 year. So we will take all those items and we'll compare that with current liability, that is creditors, bills payable, etc. Okay, so we are comparing against the assets and liabilities. So we are checking its solvency position. The standard ratio given to you is 2:1. Okay, so that is for every 1 rupee of current liability, there are 2 rupees of current assets, okay, to pay its current liabilities as at the balance sheet date. Fine. So now if this ratio is 2:1, for 1 rupee of current liability, there are double current assets. So that's the standard ratio, right? And guys, this is much better. This is much better because you should always have more current assets to repay your current liability. Only then you will be treated as short-term solvent. So it is a test of short-term solvency position. So sometimes in the question they can also ask that calculate the short-term solvency position, then you have to remember it's the current ratio on the basis of which you can calculate the short-term solvency position. A very low ratio indicates unsatisfactory liquidity position and very high ratio shows inefficient utilization of funds. Now, this is a very important statement. If this ratio is lower, example, if this ratio is 0.8:1, then can I say for 1 rupee of current liability, you just have 0.8 of current assets. So, this, my dear students, is not good. Why? Because can I say you have lower amount of current assets to repay your current liability? It's absolutely not fine. If this ratio is 6:1, then you are tremendously short-term solvent. But you have so much of current assets, you have money blocked in current assets, which is so much extra that you are not utilizing your funds properly. And guys, current assets minus current liabilities actually gives you working capital. So don't you think if suppose the working capital is too much in a particular company, there is efficiency or there is inefficiency? There is inefficiency. So it is very important for you to know that the current ratio should be in standard, at a standard ratio of 2:1. If it is lower than 2:1, then we will say that it is not good, it is insolvent, and if it is higher than 2:1, then we will call it as inefficient utilization of funds. So always remember, current ratio should always be higher the better, okay? But too much high current ratio will definitely lead to inefficiency. Fine. So this is something about the current ratio. So what I'm trying to do here is, some of the ratios you must already be knowing. We are just making our concepts very clear. I'm brushing up your concepts that when we are talking about current ratio, first of all, what should be clicked is, we are checking the short-term solvency position. So we are taking current assets upon current liabilities, and the standard ratio is 2:1. Too much high, not good. Too much low, not good. And in examination, we will always select the company with the highest current ratio. Even if it is 4:1 and 3:1, we will select 4:1, but we will definitely write down a note that too much high current ratio also leads to inefficient utilization of funds. Okay. So my dear students, this is nothing but current ratio. Okay. Fine. So this was something about current ratio. Now let us discuss quick ratio. Guys, what is the meaning of quick ratio? Quick ratio means how much is your quick assets available to repay your current liabilities. Now how do you define a quick asset? Quick assets are those assets which can be immediately converted into cash. Okay, it can be immediately converted into cash without loss of time or value. Without loss of time or value. So quick assets are those assets which can be immediately converted into cash without loss of time or value. So my dear students, institute says that all the types of current assets are your quick assets except for two. Stock and prepaid expenses are treated as your non-quick assets, which is absolutely correct. Everywhere this principle is followed, where stock and prepaid expenses will be treated as non-quick assets. Because if you want to convert stock and prepaid expenses into cash, you will have to either wait or you will have to reduce its value and sell it. So that is why stock and prepaid expenses are non-quick asset. Apart from that, all the current assets are your quick assets. So how to understand this ratio? Quick ratio is quick assets upon quick liabilities. All the current liabilities are quick liabilities. All the current liabilities can be immediately converted into cash. But all the quick assets are not your quick assets. There are two types of the assets which are non-quick in nature, that is stock and prepaid expenses. Stock and prepaid expenses are treated as non-quick in nature because it will take some time or value for the purpose of conversion. Right? So my dear students, concept here is very clear that when we are talking about quick ratio, we are taking quick assets upon quick liabilities. We want to check that which assets can be immediately converted into cash. So if tomorrow you want to repay a liability, then which asset you can immediately convert into cash. So there are two types of assets which are treated non-quick in nature, that is stock and prepaid. Okay, because either you will have to wait, because there is always stock holding period, either you have to wait for 2 months, 3 months, etc. to convert that stock into cash. Prepaid cannot not be converted into cash. Prepaid, my dear students, if you want to convert into cash, either you will lose value or either you have to just wait to utilize that particular service. So that's why prepaid and stock both are your non-quick. Okay, and all the current liabilities can be immediately paid. So quick ratios indicate the ability of the company to pay the quick liabilities or immediate liability with the help of quick assets. Quick assets are those current assets which are immediately converted into cash without loss of time or value. So this sentence is very important. It can be immediately converted into cash without loss of time or value. Standard ratio is 1:1. Obviously now standard ratio will be reduced only because you are reducing your numerator, no? Here the numerator was entire current assets. So your standard ratio was 2:1. Now your numerator will be 1:1 because you have reduced stock, you have reduced prepaid expenses. So your standard ratio will also be 1:1, which indicates every 1 rupee of current liability is having for 1 rupee of quick assets to repay its current liability. Okay, and it is a measure of immediate solvency position. So that one was the measure of short-term solvency position. This is the measure of immediate solvency position. And quick ratio is also known as acid test, liquid ratio, 1:1 ratio, stuff like that. And guys, many times even bank overdraft is deducted from the current liabilities to arrive at quick liabilities. So sometimes it will be current liabilities minus bank overdraft, but use this concept only if it is specifically mentioned in the question. Only if they have told you that the bank overdraft is a non-quick liability only, then you have to subtract. But if no information is given to you, then bank overdraft itself is your quick liability. Okay. So quick ratio also, my dear student, should be higher the better. But if quick ratio is tremendously high, then there is efficiency or there is inefficiency. Answer is there is inefficiency. Okay. So I hope, my dear students, you have understood what is quick ratio. You have to remember like this: all current assets are quick assets except for two, stock and prepaid. Because if you want to convert that into cash, you will lose time or value. And current liabilities, all are your quick liabilities. Only under special circumstances, if they mention that bank overdraft is a non-quick, only then you have to subtract, or else all current liabilities immediately can be converted into cash. It will not take time for current liabilities to be converted. Suppose my creditor has offered a credit period of 3 months. I go immediately and tell him, okay, you take your payment right now. Now in such a situation, he will not deny. He will not tell me, no sir, you have to come after 3 months. So all the current liabilities can be converted into cash immediately. Fine. So this is nothing but quick ratio for you. Okay. Now let us start with super quick ratio. Now what is the super quick ratio? In super quick ratio, we have to take cash, bank and marketable securities and divide that by current liability. So in super quick ratio, we have to take cash or near cash. How much or the cash or near cash is available to repay our current liability. So see, current ratio was having all the types of assets which can be converted into cash within a period of 1 year. Quick ratio means what? All the types of asset except for stock and prepaid expenses. Super quick ratio is what? Okay, now we are just going to take only cash and near to cash items to check how much is available to repay our current liability. So can I say now numerator has further reduced. So cash, bank and marketable securities I need to divide by current liabilities. This ratio is known as absolute liquidity ratio, cash reservoir ratio, etc. And this ratio indicates 1 rupee of current liability, how much cash or near cash is available with the company to pay the current liability. So for 1 rupee of current liability, we need to check how much cash or near cash is available. So super quick ratio is cash, bank and marketable securities, which we have to divide by current liabilities. So which indicates how much cash or near cash is available to repay 1 rupee of current liability. Suppose you have 20,000 rupees of cash and your current liabilities are 1 lakh. So can I say 20% funds are readily available either in form of cash or marketable securities. and this ratio, if it is higher, then of course here you cannot keep so much of cash with you, so it marks inefficiency, and too much lower is also bad, but there is no standard ratio for the same. So that is why, my dear students, cash super quick ratio should not be in excess also, it should not be lower also. You can keep it depending upon your business requirement, okay, which is nothing but cash or near cash available to repay 1 rupee of current liability. Perfect. So super quick ratio is also checking how much is the money available to repay current liability. Same was with quick ratio, how much money do you have to repay your current liability, and same goes with current ratio. But in all the three cases, I hope you have understood that current ratio will take all the assets which can be converted into cash within 1 year. Quick ratio will only consider immediate conversion asset, and your super quick will consider how much cash you have it with you. Perfect. So this was something regarding your super quick ratio. Just read it once. Now let us start with the next ratio, stock to working capital ratio. Now as the ratio suggests, this is closing stock upon working capital. Very easy to remember, stock to working capital. So it has to be stock upon working capital here. And guys, the beauty of this ratio is that we will understand that how much money is blocked in stock in the entire working capital. What's the formula for working capital? It is current assets minus current liabilities. And what are the items of current asset? There is stock, debtors, cash, bill receivable, prepaid expenses, etc. This ratio will make you understand that how much stock do you have in a particular working capital. See, if this ratio is higher, let's say for example stock to working capital is 1:1, then what does it indicate? That 1 rupee of working capital entirely is blocked in the form of stock. 100% money is blocked in the form of stock. It indicates there is no liquidity only with the company. Liquidity will only arise when you sell the stock. And if this ratio is lower, then it says that your amount of investment in stock is relatively lower. So there cannot be higher the better or lower the better for this particular ratio, because it depends upon business to business, that whether you want to keep more money in stock or whether you want to keep less money in stock. So stock to working capital ratio is stock upon working capital. Higher the ratio, more money will be blocked in the form of stock, and lower the ratio means higher will be the liquidity. That's the only interpretation of this ratio. This ratio indicates the extent to which the working capital is blocked in the form of stock. Lower the ratio, higher will be the liquidity of the company. Okay. So this is your stock to working capital ratio. Just read this once. Now let us start with the next ratio, my dear students, which is your debt equity ratio. Now debt equity ratio, my dear students, is a very important ratio, because debt equity ratio will make you understand that we raise capital from two sources. It is borrowed funds, which is known as debt, and this is shareholders funds, which is known as equity. So we take debt as well as equity, we take borrowed funds as well as shareholders funds, and compare that to check that how are we raising our capital. What is the total capital which is employed in the business? Now pay careful attention here. Suppose, my dear students, I start with the business by taking 1 lakh rupees of debt, and I raise share capital amounting to rupees 2 lakhs. So can I say this ratio is 0.5:1? So out of the total capital which is employed in the business, can I say 1 lakh rupees is your debt and equity is your 2 lakhs? For every 1.5 rupee which is invested, 0.5 is your debt and 1 rupee is your equity. Now my dear students, if this ratio is tremendously high, then can I say the risk in the business will be lower or the risk in the business will be higher? Of course the risk in the business is going to be higher. Higher the debt equity ratio, my dear students, higher will be the risk. Lower the debt equity ratio, lower is the risk. So my dear students, debt equity ratio is nothing but borrowed funds upon shareholders funds, which is 1 lakh upon 2 lakh. If this ratio is lower, risk here will also be lower. Now my dear students, it indicates the proportion of the funds belonging to the outsiders to that of the shareholders. The standard ratio is 2:1. So guys, the standard ratio they say it's 2:1. So you should take double your debt as compared to your equity. Now that is because only if you take debt, you'll be taking a little bit risk in the particular company and you'll be able to expand and grow. So taking debt in limits is still fine, because in such a situation, you will be able to expand and grow in much faster way. Now there is a particular company, let's say for example X, which only uses its own funds for the purpose of expansion. So it generates profits, it uses that funds for the purpose of expansion. There is another company Y. That company uses its own funds, but it has also taken some risk by taking some bank borrowings. If everyone does not take any risk in the business, how will banks do the business? So don't you think that debt equity ratio should always be there? Come on, yes or no? Yes. But in the limit of 2:1. Use your credibility in the market, take some loan. Because if suppose, if you are not taking that particular loan, your expansion will be at a much slower pace. Every company will have its credibility. Every company will take some amount of the loan by exploiting its credibility so that they can use this particular money and then expand on that basis and grow business. Okay. So the standard ratio is 2:1, which indicates that 1 rupee of shareholders' funds raised, the company has 2 rupees from the outsiders. Debt equity ratio is also known as a measurement of financial risk. As I told you, if it is higher than 2:1, then can I say the ratio will be lower or the ratio will be higher? The risk will be lower or risk will be higher? Risk will be higher. Higher the debt equity ratio, higher is the financial risk. And debt equity ratio is also known as financial leverage or banker's ratio. So these are different names. By the word debt, we mean short term or long term loans. Of course, it means long term loans. That's why it's also known as borrowed funds. And by the word equity, we mean your shareholders' funds. So here the definition of equity is shareholders' funds, which takes two types of share capital: equity preference, add reserves and surplus, which is past accumulated profits, and minus miscellaneous expenditure not written off, which is your future certain losses which will be debited in the P&L account, so you can subtract that. Okay. So this is nothing but shareholders' funds. So my dear students, finally, your debt equity ratio comprises of debt and equity, where debt is always long term, equity is shareholders' funds. This ratio indicates how much proportion of the money is being invested by outsiders and how much is from the shareholders. And this ratio, if it is higher than 2:1, then there is tremendous risk, and lower the ratio indicates lower the risk. So from examination perspective, we will always select the company with a lower debt equity ratio. Okay, so lower the debt equity ratio, better it is. Fine. So this is something regarding your debt equity ratio. So if you want to just read this. Now my dear students, the next ratio which we have is called as capital gearing ratio. Now what is the meaning of the word gearing means? Gearing, my dear student, means risk. And higher the capital gearing ratio, higher the risk. Now let's say for example, there are two companies A and B. A has raised entire capital by equity share capital 1 lakh. B has raised the capital by taking equity share capital 20,000, 9% preference share capital 30,000 and 10% debt 50,000. Can I say both have raised 1 lakh, 1 lakh? But if I talk about B, then B has 9% preference share capital and 10% debt. So B has some fixed income bearing security. Don't you think, my dear students, that if suppose the fixed income bearing security is given to you like 9% and 10% debt, you have to compulsory do the business, because there is a fixed obligation which you have to pay. When I raise the money from preference shareholders, don't you think I have to give them some preference dividend? Is preference dividend voluntary or is preference dividend mandatory? Of course, preference dividend is mandatory. So that is why I have to compulsory earn for my preference shareholders. I have to compulsory earn for my preference shareholders. When I talk about debenture holders, I have to compulsory earn for my debenture holders. So my dear students, preference shareholders, you have to pay preference dividend, Debenture holders, you have to compulsory pay interest. So I hope you are trying to understand that higher the funds which we are taking from fixed obligation sources, higher is the risk in the business because we have to compulsory earn to give them the money. If you are taking the money from equity shareholders, is the equity shareholders, equity share capital, is it risk bearing? Is it mandatory to distribute the dividend? No, it is not mandatory to distribute the dividend, it is voluntary. So my dear students, dividend distribution is voluntary. So even if suppose during the year there is too much of risk, you are not doing business, still they will not demand for money. But can I say bank will? Can I say preference shareholders will? So my dear students, preference share capital and your debt, both the things, my dear students, are your fixed income bearing securities. And if you raise the money more with this particular amount, then definitely risk in the business will be higher. So that is why higher the preference share capital, higher the debt, higher will be the risk, my dear students. Okay. So that's why the formula here is funds entitled for fixed interest and fixed dividends, divide that by funds not entitled for fixed interest and fixed dividends. So which are the funds which are not entitled for fixed interest and fixed dividend? It is nothing but equity shareholders funds. And the funds entitled for fixed interest and dividends is debt and preference share capital. Because debt and preference share capital both will bear your fixed interest and your fixed preference dividend percentage. Correct? If you take more money from them, risk in the business will rise. So higher the ratio, higher is the risk. Correct? Next, equity shareholder fund here means what? Equity share capital plus reserves minus miscellaneous expenditure not written off. Now this ratio is an extended version of your debt equity ratio, and we have to compare fixed commitment with not fixed commitment. And in the absence of preference share capital, capital gearing ratio becomes equal to your debt equity ratio. Now isn't this obvious? Because debt equity ratio has shareholder funds and shareholders funds has preference share capital. So if there is no preference share capital, then here there will be no preference share. It will only become debt upon equity shareholder funds, which is nothing but debt equity ratio. Okay, so in the absence of preference share capital, your capital gearing ratio equals to your debt equity ratio. But there's nothing to worry about. You will be doing it in whether they have asked capital gearing or debt equity. If there is no preference share capital, you will take debt upon equity shareholders funds only. Okay. So this is something regarding your capital gearing ratio. If you want to make a note of this example, you can. Let us now start with the last ratio, which is your proprietary ratio. Now your proprietary ratio is proprietor's funds upon total assets. So here what are we checking, my dear students? Here we are checking that how much is the shareholders funds as compared to the total assets. Suppose we have fixed assets, we have long-term investments, suppose we have current assets, 100 rupees, 50 rupees and 50 rupees, so 200 rupees. This is your total assets. We have to check how these total assets are funded. Suppose you have taken 100 rupees loan, 100 rupees is your owner's funds and 100 rupees is your borrowed funds. So can I say now from this 200 rupees, your owner's funds is 100. So can I say 50% of the money which is blocked is from the owner's funds and 50% of the money is nothing but your borrowed funds. It's nothing but your outsider's funds. So my dear students, proprietary ratio, if it is higher, then the stability in the business is also higher. Higher the proprietary ratio, higher is the stability. Lower the proprietary ratio, lower will be the stability, because lower the proprietary ratio will indicate what? It will indicate that now you have taken more money from outsiders, from borrowed funds. So that is why from this 200, if I take 200 proprietors funds and if I take 200 assets, so can I say this is 1:1. So your entire 1 rupee of asset is funded by your own funds. There is no outsiders. And if this is 0.2:1, so out of your 1 rupee of asset, your proprietary fund is 20%. So can I say your outsiders are 80%. So if this ratio is lower, it indicates more people from outsiders are contributing it. And if this ratio is higher, your own money is there in the assets. So there is more stability in the business. Okay. So this ratio indicates the total assets of the company financed by shareholders. Higher the ratio, higher will be the long-term stability. Total asset is fixed asset plus long-term investment plus current asset. Okay. With this, my dear students, all the 7 ratios get over. So now let us just summarize this. Current ratio. As we discussed, current ratio is current asset upon current liabilities. It is your standard ratio is 2:1. This ratio should be lower the better or higher the better from the examination perspective. It should be higher the better. Quick ratio. We take quick assets upon quick liabilities, where quick asset is current asset minus stock minus prepaid. Stock and prepaid are your non-quick assets. And then we divide quick assets with quick liabilities. If this ratio is higher, then it is better, but too much high will indicate inefficient utilization of funds. Higher the better. Same goes with super quick ratio. This should also be higher the better. Stock to working capital, I cannot say higher or lower the better. Higher the stock to working capital, lower will be the liquidity. Correct. So, and it depends upon business to business. Some business does not require any liquidity. So, in such situation, they can invest more money in stock and vice versa. Debt equity ratio is lower the better. Because from examination perspective, we should always select the companies which have lower amount of the risk. So, that's why we will follow conservatism. That's why lower the debt equity ratio, better it is. But as we have discussed, the standard ratio is 2:1, right? And guys, if this ratio is lower, then there is lack of credibility. And if this ratio is higher, then you are taking too much of risk. Okay. Same goes with capital gearing ratio, lower the better. But what's the difference? In capital gearing ratio, we just take fixed income bearing securities. That is preference share capital and debentures. These both are your fixed income bearing securities. And this will be divided by equity shareholder funds. So, if you are taking more money from this preference shareholders and debenture holders, then you are taking more risk in the business, because you have to compulsory on for them. They will always ask for some fixed commitment. Okay. Proprietary ratio, my dear students, this should be higher the better. Higher the proprietary ratio indicates that more money is getting invested in your assets from your own funds. So, higher the proprietary ratio, the better it is. Fine. Proprietary funds upon total assets. So, with this, now my dear students, your balance sheet ratio gets over. In the next video, I will be starting first with the mixed ratios. So, thank you so much for listening.